on this episode of Therapy Bites Art Lab.
Roman's Road to Resilience, the psychology of survival. Think you're tough, interested in being tough, know what tough even means. Is tough even something that's important in our overburgered, melted cheese society? Something tough you're going through, and you could use some advice from someone who's made it through some serious storms of life themselves? Well, buckle up and get ready. Imagine picking up right now all the belongings you can carry and moving to a strange land nearly 6,000 miles away. Our guest did. For most Americans, this is a land of plenty. You might even say it's a land flowing with milk and honey. When's the last time you met a starving person anyway, or had a bomb fall on your roof? We Americans have grown fat and lazy on that milk and honey diet. We have a serious deficiency of vitamin R, and that stands for resilience. You may think you struggle to survive, but you've not met our Roman friend. He's here today to tell us about how you can fortify your mental diet with some nutritious resilience. Our special guest today has been a father to 30 plus children. He's actually has had connections with the Secret Service. They wanted to know why he had all those kids. No, I'm just kidding. Join us today in Therapy Bites Art Lab for The Roman's Road to Resilience, the psychology of survival, coming up next.
Stay tuned following the interview for On the Couch and Off the Rocker, our special guest's psycho-silly analysis by Art Lab's own head cabbager, Dr. Ima Freudnot.
Welcome to Therapy Bites Art Lab, where Dr. Heath and his special guests share real-life stories of helping and healing, fresh from the actual therapy couch, while taking a bite out of common counseling missteps and misconceptions. And now, here's Heath and the T-Ball team.
Hey T-Ballers, welcome back to another episode of Therapy Bites Art Lab for the Roman's Road to Resilience, Psychology of Survival. Today we're going to talk about dealing with the deepest of losses, the magic of giving back even when life keeps taking from you, how not getting your way may just be what the doctor ordered to embiggen your own resilience, and how resilience is a gift you can give yourself. Our guest today, Roman Prokopchuk, and he's going to teach me how to pronounce that correctly because that's a good old-fashioned Ukrainian name. Roman is a first-generation immigrant from Ukraine. He arrived in the U.S. with 6 other family members to a 2-bedroom apartment. That sounds kind of cramped. Roman interned with the Secret Service and held a top-secret government clearance. He was forced to become a self-taught digital marketer as a result of the 2008 recession. And goodness, don't we all have fond memories of that? And he fell into love with all things social media and digital. Roman has had 13 years of experience leading digital teams and senior leadership roles on over 600 campaigns across many industries. He founded Nova Zora Digital in 2012. Roman is the host of the Digital Savage Experience podcast. He's a foster parent. That's where those 29, 30 plus kids come in his home since June 2018, and he's become a foster parent as a result of going through the tragedy of 6 miscarriages of his own and his wife's in as little as 3 years, 2 of which happened on Christmas Day. With death, loss, and hardships, Roman pushes through no matter what, and is here to teach you how to do the same. Hey, Roman, thank you for being on the show today. We're really looking forward to it. Tell us about yourself and your journey, and just kind of give us a little bit of backdrop.
Stay in the stands at the end of the interview, T-Ballers, and witness our special guest slug a bite-sized brain ball with your name all over it, clean out of the art lab.
Yeah, you kind of covered the, I guess, abridged version, and thank you for having me on. And like, as you mentioned, I'm a first-generation immigrant from Ukraine. Obviously, stuff going on in Ukraine. I have 5 family members serving in the Ukrainian military. A relative a few weeks ago got her house blown up in a missile strike. So there's situations like that going on. As you mentioned, I interned with the Secret Service. Thought I was going to take a criminal justice route. That ended up being kind of squashed by the 2008 recession. I got a chance and took it to get into digital marketing, and I ran with it. And as you mentioned, in my personal life, My wife and I have fostered 29 kids, experienced 6 miscarriages, several deaths to close loved ones in the last few years, and just kind of taking it one day at a time.
Wow, that is amazing. And you're sitting down at the moment, but psychologically, you're still standing, aren't you?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where you don't necessarily have a choice. Well, at least I don't have a choice. It's either, giving up or picking yourself up and moving forward. And I guess everything that I've experienced is more so prepared me, even in a good or bad way, for future challenges that were, greater. I always say everything in life is a lesson or a blessing.
Wow, that's a great way to look at it. And we have a room full of believers today. I read that faith is a major part of your own resilience.
Yep. And technically, we came over to the U.S. as religious refugees. So under the Soviet Union, you couldn't obviously practice a religion formally. In communism. Like, that's who you serve or who you, quote unquote, in a way, I guess, worship. Obviously, I don't agree with that. But, my parents and my grandparents went to church, even though it was, against the law. So there'd be like KGB and stuff outside of the church, writing down who went in and out, taking away certain privileges and things of that nature. So, we came over here when we got an opportunity, and, obviously a more friendlier climate to, worship and kind of be who you are.
What do you think is the problem with that? I mean, why do the communists over there have a problem with people if they don't believe in it? To me, I have debates with folks and that are atheists, and they'll say, they get very passionate about this thing about believing in God, and I point out if you don't believe in it, isn't it a bit like debating the tooth fairy? I mean, you don't spend a great lot of passion debating the tooth fairy, and you wouldn't have KGB agents stationed outside of homes for parents putting nickels under the pillows of kids who are waiting on the tooth fairy. What's the problem communists have with believers?
Yeah, I think it's just control. Any communist system, on paper, it looks good. Obviously, in theory, there's really no communist country that has been successful. But it's one of those things where they need to control things, and regardless of who you are and what you worship and your stance on religion, there you can't have outside thoughts outside of the system, if you will.
Wow. Now, having been a part of, and this wasn't actually the whole point of our interview, but I'm very, very interested. How might you compare the differences in a Ukrainian believer who is practicing basically, I guess, illegally, and a American believer who can go to church every time the doors are open?
I feel like other things outside of that, it's just like an appreciation and like having something and understanding what consequences are for doing a certain action or practicing something, like, being a Christian in, some Middle Eastern countries is tough. Being a Christian in China and, North Korea and other areas in the world. So I think it's, I feel like having a greater sense of faith, because the climate is so chaotic and things can happen to you for having those beliefs. I mean, thank God in the U.S., nothing like that has, at least since I've lived here, really transpired. So people have like the choice and the option. So I feel like complacency is often like, if you become complacent, it's very comfortable. And I say like complacency is the death of innovation in general, like outside of faith, more so to business. But it's like you start, I guess, losing appreciation and not understanding, like back in the day, like, Roman times where, Christians were thrown into the arena and, being, torn by lions and stuff like that, put to death and martyred. So there's still Christians in the world being martyred for their beliefs. And sometimes when we're not in that situation or that environment, we don't appreciate it, I guess, as much, appreciate our, freedom to worship.
Yeah, I found that comfort, although we seek it, we want the best recliner, the most comfortable recliner, the softest pillow, the softest mattress. We want the easiest job. We really want the absence of gravity in life that folks don't understand that comfort really obliterates resilience. The more comfort you have, the less resilient you'll be. And that sounds awful nice right now, but wait until you have the occasion to need resilience, such as, well, what you've experienced, the death of loved ones, maybe health problems, looming death for yourself, loss of a job, which you've experienced that too. Resilience kind of comes in handy, doesn't it?
Yeah, and you have to kind of have it as a starting point. So if you haven't experienced anything, I guess, hard in your life, you don't have that, I guess, litmus test to overcome and deal with something in a, I guess, a manner where it's applicable to the situation. I had a death in the family. My grandfather passed away 3 years ago, and he was kind of my male role model, childhood wise. My dad was abusive in terms of domestic violence and stuff like that. But when he passed away, it hit me hard. I didn't have a chance to say goodbye. I grieved in my own way. Then I felt kind of like I should pick myself up, because in order to honor him, he would want me to do my best and be there for those around me. And my grandmother actually passed away this summer. She walked into the hospital with a stomach ache, and they told her she has pancreatic and liver cancer and a few weeks to live. I actually got to spend every day of those last kind of 6 or 7 weeks with her. And even though it was hard, I dealt with it, differently. I was more at peace. So I think going through something, and I think nothing in life is easy, and everyone will experience something hard, but how you deal with it, and how many of those challenges you have. And I think also how you're brought up. Like I talked about my upbringing coming from an Eastern European country, where a lot of people in their personal lives and their business come to the U.S. and kind of thrive because they have an element of like grit and kind of a chip on their shoulder as well.
Wow, that's amazing. Did you notice the differences in that right off the bat when you got to the U.S.? That and guys, listen, I love my country, but I do think that we're a country of, as an old neuropsych professor of mine once said, who, by the way, is from Russia. He was actually a Jewish immigrant, and the communists, for whatever reason, don't look kindly upon Jewish people either, evidently. And you could shed some light on that. But he calls us a country of the worried well. Of course, he pronounces that with a V, worried well, or something like that. But did you notice right off the bat that a difference in, as you call it, the level of grit of a Ukrainian immigrant versus the grit that Americans have? Because I think we've grown soft.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's like that saying that tough times create hard men, hard men create good times, good times create soft men. So I think it's very environmental. So when we came over, my grandfather and grandmother were already retired in Ukraine. He came over here. He was in his mid 50s, and he started doing roofing, which is a tough job.
Oh, wow.
Certain 20-year-olds wouldn't do it. They would come here on like a work visa and, work 2 weeks and said, nah, this isn't for me. He did that for another 20 years, in the heat, in the cold, worked, Monday to Saturday, every day. Sunday, he would get up, go to church in the morning, go to church at night, never complain, never anything. And I think we came over, and within a few weeks, we were working already. Unfortunately, the system's kind of broken in terms of government assistance. So certain people stay in government assistance for life and don't have any parameters to better themselves. So they're stuck in complacency. We came over, I believe it was like a month, and they took away, like welfare and whatever else from my grandparents. So they were, forced to kind of adapt. So everybody, my mom, my grandmother, my aunt started cleaning houses. They worked at some kind of like factory during the day. They started learning English at night. So there was like no sitting down. And I think it's still applicable now, because my wife and I have done in the past, before we sold our home a few years ago, Airbnb, and two people came over, a couple from Belarus, and in a week they had an apartment, they had their phone set up, they both had jobs, and they were kind of good to go, and just doing what they had to do. Whereas I see other people just kind of complaining on social media, complaining about their circumstances, about their situation, and not doing the most with what they have. Not everybody obviously is privileged. Not everybody has a trust fund or is kind of set up with those ideal situations. Yeah. But whatever cards you're dealt, you have to make them work in your favor.
That's amazing you say that. I work a lot with in the transportation industry for folks who are in safety sensitive positions and want to get back to work after a failed drug test. I've literally had grown men will call me after being in the program, this return to duty program, for 3 or 4 months, say, hey, I've got to get back to work. I've not worked in 3 to 4 months. And I'm just stunned. And I say to these guys, let me get this straight. You're a grown man and you have sat around on your backside for a quarter of a year, a third of a year, doing nothing, waiting on this preferred job. Why would you do that? McDonald's is hiring every day. There's someone always needs a ditch dug, or a roof with shingles put on it. I mean, we are in one of the lowest unemployment rates of all time. And it blows my mind that people in the U.S. will sit around waiting to be spoon-fed some fuzzy-wuzzy off a job, which I call the Cousin Eddie effect. In Christmas Vacation, it was said that Cousin Eddie was waiting on a management position. And I don't know, we've kind of lost that grit and that resilience to just get out and make something happen. One of my favorite quotes or ways of looking at things is from a book called... and this is a book, if you're in sales, you guys should get it. You can't teach a kid to ride a bicycle at a seminar. I kid you not. That's the name of the book. And it's the Sandler sales system. And the way he looks at his work, or looked at his work, is that if I can fail 99 times to make a sale, I'm probably going to make a sale on the 100th attempt. Therefore, every failure gets me one step closer to success. And I think in the U.S., lacking resilience, we expect to hit a home run our first time at bat. And you guys didn't even do that with your children, because you said that you guys had 6 miscarriages?
Yeah, hitting a home run like right off the bat is a fluke. Like you can't understand like the journey of those no's and those failures. You understand what you had to change and then what you had to perfect to then gain a success, and you can document that and possibly replicate it. You have people creating courses or experts that have done something one time. Like that's not the definition of success, in my opinion. It's replicating it over and over again. And we've experienced 6 miscarriages, 2 of which were on Christmas days, and it was one of those things that those led us to become foster parents, some of which happened when we had foster kids in our home. But we thought about starting a family and at minimum being foster parents. You create a safe home and a place to kind of heal and rehabilitate for, kids, especially kids, because, trauma affects, in my opinion, a lot tougher and can, stand for the rest of your life. So we can have an impact and a part in that, where some kids come to us and they've been, used and neglected. And caseworker says, they haven't spoken or they've been nonverbal, and a month in our home, they're, smiling, laughing, talking, being able to start healing and really being kids. I think it's rewarding. It teaches me a lot. It puts me, and has me be grounded and adds a layer of gratitude, because, we talked about being complacent and kind of, a soft climate. But I think when you have gratitude and you can kind of recalibrate what you truly have in your life, I think that gets you out of that, rut kind of mindset as well.
Absolutely. And with everything that you've been through and kind of all the different job opportunities there are here, what drew you to the work that you're doing currently?
Necessity. The 15 years that I've been in it, it's basically I graduated with a degree in criminal justice. I interned with the Secret Service on a counterfeit currency squad, was going to go kind of the federal law enforcement route, and then state, local, federal agencies froze hiring, froze kind of spending because of the 2008 recession.
Right.
So I was looking for a job for a while, kind of got down. Only thing that kind of kept me sane was going to the gym and being consistent with fitness. And then, I would try to network. I mean, the gym is a good opportunity to network and meet people and collaborate as well. So kind of don't shy from any opportunity you get. And somebody basically said, come out to my car after your workout. I want to give you something that may help, which obviously could go in different directions.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, but then I kind of told myself, why not? I really don't have anything to lose, and take a chance. And I went out. They opened their trunk. They handed me a packet about search engine optimization. Said, read this packet. Take another month or two, and you can start doing it for our business. So although I had no experience in digital marketing, kind of tech, website design, development, coding, I said I really have nothing to lose, and I'd be developing a new skill set that can potentially be marketed or marketable in the job field. And that was kind of my foot in the door. I held 3 director roles on the agency side, worked with Fortune 500 clients, was responsible for millions of dollars in kind of portfolio spend, founded my own agency. And if I didn't take that chance to begin with, it was kind of stuck like, no, I'm set on just doing it my way and I'm going to just wait around. That opportunity would have been squandered.
You know what is amazing to me, Roman, is that in that situation, most people would experience an inflammation of the accomplishment cortex in the brain and suffer from a bad case of I can't do it-itis. What is it that about you that you didn't suffer from the same thing? What kept you from looking at this and saying, I'm not trained in this, I'm not smart enough, I'm not creative enough? What kept you from just saying I can't do it?
Just kind of thinking about other things in my life that they weren't packaged in the way that I expected them to, but led to great things. So I think in life, a lot of things happen in different ways, but get you to your desired goal. So, oftentimes you make a plan, but then that plan, life has a good way of derailing that. And that's what you're going to do with it. I guess the Mike Tyson quote, everyone has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. So it's like, what are you going to do in that session? Are you going to get back up? Are you going to keep getting back up? Or are you going to be the people that kind of quit? And I think interviewing, over 300 people myself, being on different shows and collaborating, I think the biggest thing you could do is not quit. Eventually, if you have the drive, if you have the ambition, and, you have to be good at what you're chasing to develop the skill set, that thing of outlasting your competitors holds true. So if you look at companies, those companies that are still around today, they may have had a product, service, or anything else that was the same as their competitors, but they've kind of weathered the trials and tribulations and outlasted everybody else.
Well, those of you guys that are going to watch this on YouTube, and I hope you do because Roman has such a great backdrop, I'm bragging on. Actually, I guess I should give kudos to your wife because you didn't do that. Your wife did that. But he has an on-air sign over his right shoulder, not an exit sign. And I think that you could apply everything he just said to so many things in life, business, podcasting, writing a book, working a job, raising your children, and relationships, and particularly in relationships, what we teach couples in the art lab, one of the first things to remove from your relationship are the exit signs. Roman and his wife have been through 6 miscarriages, the deaths of 6 children, raising over 29 other children, and he doesn't have an exit sign over his shoulder. I find many times in relationships, that's all someone's looking for is just an excuse to take the nearest exit. And if you want to be successful, that's one thing you got to get out of your life. I don't I don't look for exit signs throughout my life and the hurdles I've encountered. By the way, one of which, and it wasn't a really big, it was a big hurdle, but it's not a traumatic hurdle, was building a pool. We didn't really have the money to build a pool, but I grew up doing construction and roofing houses, by the way. When I was in my teenage years, in my early 20s, it was one of my favorite things to do. But I got over that pretty quick. It soon became not a favorite thing to do. But I knew construction, but I talked to a lot of pool guys, and they would say, you can't do it. You can't do it. There's no way you can do it. No way you can do this by yourself. One of the most motivating things that to me is someone telling me I can't do something. Because the way I think about it is, well, it's not as if I'm building a nuclear reactor, which is a piece of advice I'd like to get your take on, Roman. And that is, no matter what you're putting your hand to do, the good book says, the scripture says, do it with all your might. Whatever your hand finds to do it with all your might. And the question I have behind that is it against the laws of physics? For your relationship, is your relationship succeeding against the laws of physics? Is yours succeeding in business or sales or digital marketing or in your educational path? As long as it's not against the laws of physics, the question is, why not? Why not? And I think that we have all these self-limiting beliefs. And Roman, did you not have self-limiting beliefs?
I mean, I think everybody is, in a way, put in check by their situation in one way or another, but it's just kind of taking action and really putting yourself or an idea in the back of your mind that there's no quit. You have to do it, and there's no other choice. And you fall and stumble along the way, but you keep picking yourself up. So. I mean, things like going through one miscarriage is challenging. Going through 6, is challenging enough, and, emotionally draining each time around, and experiencing other things together that can, potentially in a lot of situations, end relationships, break up marriages, but kind of combating things together and kind of being there for each other, I think it is key. And, I see myself, whatever I do, I don't have a choice. I'm not always motivated. So if you watch YouTube, you have all these people, will give you the idea that they're always, no one's always motivated or driven. It's just the people that take action and just don't kind of complain about their circumstances. Complaints aren't going to get you anywhere. They're just going to exert negative energy. So, surround yourself in something positive and keep it as kind of a beacon in front of you.
For full show notes and transcript of today's episode, go to therapybites.podbean.com.
Individual psychological concepts are very different animals from one another. And while they are often readily observable in the wild, the Therapy Bites Art Lab Zoo affords us a unique opportunity to study them in a safe and controlled environment. Welcome to the Therapy Bites Art Lab Creature Feature. Oh, good heavens!
Breaking news, T-ballers. My name is Safari Sarah, and I'm reporting in from this rainforest. And I have a very special message from this tiny little gnat, negative automatic thought, and he has a megaphone. And he is saying, one second, let me hear what he has to say. Okay, I got it. Run away as fast as possible. If it's anything that's uncomfortable or difficult or anything that we don't want to deal with, run away. It fixes all our problems, right? Wrong. No, we're not going to listen to this little guy, so he can just shoo. We're going to welcome Artie here into the creature feature, and he is going to tell us how to accurately handle this situation. So just give me 1 second while I get the scoop from Artie. Okay, so Artie, Accurate Realistic Thoughts, he is telling us that the best way to overcome avoidance, now hold on to your seats, is to avoid avoidance. So if you have something that you are avoiding, go ahead and do it anyways. If you are experiencing anxiety, don't focus on the anxiety. Focus on those thoughts that are up here in your noggin, because that is what is keeping you from doing what you need to do. So if you have any catastrophic thinking, like this is going to turn out horribly, I don't know what's going to happen, it's obviously going to not be a good thing, you don't know that. So in order to overcome the avoidance gnat, you heard it here first from Artie, we are going to avoid avoidance. So get out there and do what you need to do, T-ballers. I hope you enjoy the rest of the episode, and I'll catch you in the next one. Thanks for joining us, Artie. Always good working with you, bud.
Thank you for joining us for the Therapy Bites Art Lab Creature Feature.
You're listening to Therapy Bites Art Lab, bite-sized therapy for your brain with Dr. Heath and the T-Ball team. The best advice on the net. No copay required.
You're slipping beneath the cushions of your bobble-headed psychotherapist's couch, leaving behind empty, echoing, cushy, comforting, pseudo-psychological claptrap, moving into a deeper dimension of your own mind, where distorted thinking, hurting, hopelessness, and regret evaporate into clarity, healing, renewed hope, and newfound resilience. That's the podcast sign up ahead. Your next stop, Therapy Bites Psych Secrets.
Hey T-ballers, welcome to this episode's Psych Secrets. You know, our brains are always trying to protect us. They're there to point out, hey, this might be a danger, that might be a danger, this thing in the floor might be a danger, that thing flying over your head might be a danger, this person might be a danger. But our brains rely on a different mechanism to make that determination. Just because your brain throws up an alert does not mean that you are in danger. It takes your executive functioning system, part of which is right below your hairline there, DLPFC, dorsal lateral prefrontal cortex. Use that power part of your brain. The power player, the bus driver in your brain, is your executive function system. You can't use an emotion to determine if you're in danger. Your emotions are just an alert system. It's up to a different part of you to decide whether there's danger here. Your brains are trying to protect you, but sometimes they go overboard, resulting in a false positive. That is, there's danger here. You may think there's danger here, but think again, maybe it's not dangerous at all. Maybe it's just difficult. Difficulty does not equal danger, but it's up to you to tell the difference. Your emotions can't do that for you. Thanks for joining today. Catch up with the next episode right after this.
Once again, Doc Heath rips the cushions from the couch, dishes the dirt, lets the cat out of the bag, uncorks the bottle, letting the genie escape, and blows the lid off of another of the universe's psych secrets.
Show your T-Ball team spirit and buy your hardworking Art Lab team a cup of coffee, which helps fuel purchases of high-octane equipment and T-Ball tech that get poured back into percolating, highly caffeinated content for you. Just go to buymeacoffee.com and search Therapy Bites.
Here's Heath and the T-Ball team.
Well, let me ask you what you think about this, because I would revise that a bit. Psychologically, I think that everyone, here's the curveball, your T-ball curveball for the day, T-ball, Therapy Bites Art Lab curveball for the day. My philosophy and even hypothesis is everyone is always motivated, always. The difference is if you're motivated in a healthy direction. If you don't go to work because you're not motivated to go to work, that means that you are motivated to sit your butt in the chair and eat honey buns all day long. We're always motivated, and I'm holding up my hands in a bifurcation, two different pathways. It's just you may be motivated in a healthy direction or a unhealthy direction. When my father was killed years ago, what did I want to do? I preferred to do nothing. Now that's called behavioral deactivation. I preferred to sit my butt in a chair and just soak in my grief, but I know where that pathway leads. And I told myself, I'm tapping my forehead, I decided what thoughts I'm going to entertain. And that is, if I will get my rear end moving, things will get better. It won't bring my dad back. And I lost my mother when I was very, very young, but and that was tough to get over too. But nothing will bring them back. I had a friend at the gym. I was working out every morning at 5:30, and the most important thing that I did not do is I did not change anything. All the healthy things I was doing, I kept on doing those. And I was in the gym, and a friend of mine, Clay, whose dad passed away, said, you know, Heath, nothing helps. And I thought about that for a long time, and I thought, well, I get it, but that's not exactly right. For me, with grief, what does help is to keep moving. How did I motivate myself to keep moving? I thought in accurate ways in that direction instead of entertaining thoughts that motivated me to do nothing.
Yeah, and I mean the way when my grandfather passed away, like I had a period of like, grieving process, kind of took my foot off the pedal for certain things that I was pursuing, but like I took an approach where my parents and grandparents didn't bring me to the US to kind of just sit around and squander opportunities and not take advantage in action. And it wouldn't be fair to me. Like I thought about it and switched kind of like how I viewed the loss of my grandfather, that in order to honor him, I had to get up and I had to do something, and I had to do something above what I was doing and kind of like put in max effort. And I think any tough experience, any loss, any grief, at first it's like a wound, but then when you start kind of like you said, getting up, staying busy, moving forward, you never forget about it, but it becomes manageable in the sense of your kind of emotional well-being. So that wound then becomes a scar. So you have those scars you acquire throughout life, you have the memory of them, but they don't kind of like freeze you in your tracks in terms of being functional emotionally, physically, and everything in between.
Well, yeah, it's really very much a orthopedic approach. For those of you who know much about orthopedic surgery, more often than not, what they do after the orthopedic surgery, whether it's knee surgery, hip surgery, what have you, is they get your butt out of bed and they get you moving. Now, is it going to hurt? Absolutely, it's going to hurt. You just had freaking surgery. Why would it not hurt? If you've had a death, is that going to hurt? Well, I would hope so. Why? Well, because think about it. If you experience no pain, hurt, or suffering at the death of someone, I would argue that person's presence in your life had no meaning. Since my dad had such meaning in my life, his death resulted in, well, pain, grief, and no small amount of suffering. But see, that in itself indicated the deep meaning his presence had in my life. And for me, the thoughts that got my rear end moving, that developed the motivation to move, is kind of like Romans when honoring his granddad. Me continuing was my way of honoring my dad. I found meaning in that. And what Roman is saying, I think, and he can correct me if I'm kind of off base here, is that he was honoring the sacrifices his grandfather had made for them all to get to the country, and doing nothing was, well, not honoring that.
Yeah, I agree. And it's like you said, like whatever your motivation is, it can be bad or it could be good. Like, seeing domestic violence and, my dad never being there, I could have used that as an excuse also and kind of like turned out the same way and have a reason why, because, I had this childhood, so on and so forth. But growing up into my teens, I told myself, like, if I had a family or children in my life, friends, kids, relatives, that I would be a better example and a better role model. So I think it's just like taking that pain or whatever happened to you and then harnessing it and turning it into something good, or having you be driven by it, even though it was negative, but turn it into a positive. I mean, I've had people where there's multiple siblings, and one sibling turned out, and he kind of escaped the cycle, went against the odds, now is an entrepreneur or a motivational speaker, or has a nonprofit. And then the other sibling turned out how that environment was kind of holding him or her to be, in terms of substance abuse, crime, being locked up, that kind of stuff. So I think breaking that environment or that cycle is hard, but it's not impossible. Like, I could have turned out completely differently. And if you asked me like 5 years ago if I ever saw myself being a foster parent to one child, let alone 29, I would say no. But you truly don't know what you're capable of, and regardless of what you've experienced, use that to harness it, and point it to something good.
Never waste a hurt.
Yep.
Never waste a hurt. And just a finer point on the motivation is, folks, there's a lot of confusion on the web. Jocko Willink talks a lot about that, and I love Jocko. I think he has a lot of good stuff. But he and I disagree about the motivation thing. Discipline is built on the back of motivation. And motivation is built on the back, at least healthy motivation, is built on the back of accurate, realistic thoughts. Accurate, realistic thinking builds motivation in a healthy direction. And motivation in a healthy direction, once carried out, encodes a pattern. You can think of ruts in your brain, and that's discipline. Discipline is motivation put on autopilot. I don't have to get up and think about, and, am I going to get out there and do my 3 miles today? Gosh, I don't know. Maybe. No, it's automatic. I don't have to wonder if I'm going to brush my teeth. I don't have to wonder if I'm going to kiss my wife or hug her. I hate to say it's a habit. Habits aren't always bad things, but discipline is motivation put on autopilot, and motivation is developed in a healthy direction from accurate, realistic thoughts.
And kind of going back to talking about the foster kids, I know towards the beginning we were talking about how, a lot of them have experienced trauma. What are some of the biggest hurdles that you've seen them overcome? And also, how has your experience helped you help them with what they're experiencing?
Yes, obviously every child's case is different. Usually we have kids like the toddler age, so preschool, like 2 to 4 years old. Sometimes older. The most we've had was 5 children under the age of 4, which was interesting. But each child is coming from a different situation, either seeing something or something happened to them. One reoccurring thing in terms of I've seen throughout almost every case, there's no for the most part, some do, but there's no male role model. The father is not in the picture, and there's a history of some sort of mental illness that was never addressed in the family that leads to abuse, neglect, and there's a recidivism. We've had children that were with us that I've advocated and told the state and caseworkers, you're not addressing the problem at hand, and this child's going to be back in the system, unfortunately for them, in a few weeks. But then I'm the bad guy since I raise my hand and advocate for kids, and am told that, no matter what you say, you're not going to get me fired in certain situations. Now, there are good caseworkers and bad caseworkers, but I feel like we've had a 50-50 split in situations like that. Like, we have the children in our homes, so we understand, what they're dealing with, how they're processing things. And usually 9 times out of 10, the recommendation I give is what ends up happening. And the child was literally reunified for 6 weeks and has been back in the system and went with us for the last year. So for the good part of probably 60-70% of his life, he's been with us, and that mental illness has not been addressed because, one, it's expensive for therapy and stuff like that. So I don't know if the state wants to invest in that. And a lot of the time, judges in the system just give those kind of parents dealing with those things just appeasement and not necessarily solutions. And advocating for things like therapy for kids when seeing what they're dealing with, and it being denied, especially reunification therapy, that doesn't happen. It's one thing I think would be very beneficial and lead to a lower rate of children returning in the system, because I feel like, a parent that hasn't had his child or her child full time for, let's say a year, then they're suddenly dropped off in their lap. And based on them dealing with substance abuse, alcoholism, other stuff, other traumas, they're overwhelmed and sometimes have like a flight mentality or revert back to, what has transpired prior. So really having a situation where there's therapy for both the child, the parent right before reunification, and really separate therapy as well. Like, what are you experiencing? Because you're being taken back to the home or the place where that abuse, neglect has either happened or you saw it, and it brings back memories. But none of that really is done for the most part. And I think it's a common sense thing that can really impact a lot of positivity in terms of mental health, and if kids end up back in the system or not.
Yeah, folks, listen up. If you want a better nation, if you want a better country, then raise healthier children. If you want a better nation, raise healthier children. And if you're going to have healthier children, you have to have more educated parents, and that training's got to come from somewhere. I don't know why we think as a nation, as a country, that how do you learn to be a parent? Through osmosis, through your pillowcase or something. Parents, there's an art, there's a technique to being a parent. It is a art, a study, a discipline in itself. And a lot of parents, they just want to have it their way. I think to a lot of parents, kids are toys. It's the next new toy, and that's a whole other episode. But if you want a better nation, raise healthier children. A good place to start out, Marcus Aurelius. Meditations, read, learn, soak up the knowledge in Marcus Aurelius's book, Meditations. Make that your life. And even unlike Marcus Aurelius, you'll raise healthier children. Marcus's son, since Marcus was so busy running Rome, didn't grow up very well. Commodus, it didn't work out well for him.
So, Roman, as a foster parent, what would you say is the main thing that you bring to the table that's different? What makes your parenting unique, you think, working with these and raising these children, helping them?
Personally, it's just kind of being able to adapt to a situation, and you have a child dropped off at your home. Usually you're not giving the full facts. Sometimes they're coming from different foster homes. They've been put back in the system, or they're literally being removed in the middle of the night and dropped off at your house with a trash bag with some dirty clothes and, a stuffed animal. So the ability to really be what that child needs and really kind of soak in like the different cues that they're exhibiting, things that they're reacting to, because the thing is, you have to learn quickly, because you're having your child dropped off that's potentially, in our case, 2, 3, 4, 5 years old, and you have to make up for not knowing anything, how the child was raised, what the child has experienced or seen, and really like creating just the safest space and environment, and really just being an advocate. I think the biggest thing is being an advocate for change, and regardless of kind of who's in my way, I just try to bulldoze my way through it and not have an obstacle in front of me if that child needs something or the child is not getting something, because I treat each child, or my wife and I treat each child like they're all our own children. So anything that gets in the way of their safety or well-being, I don't necessarily care about somebody's emotions, not necessarily, but if somebody's doing harm directly or indirectly, if I happen to use a certain tone or am upset in a situation, I mean, for me, that I'll do what I need to do to kind of, have a child be safe.
Absolutely. And so
Awesome.
continuing with your resilience, everything that continues to happen, because as we know, life is not just a linear, easy thing. Things continue to happen. What are some keys to success that you've noticed to continue working on and building up your resilience as things continue to happen?
Having a support system. You're not going at things alone. Oftentimes you feel like something happens and you close people out of the situation. So I think one of the things that helped us, my wife and I, going through the foster parent journey, is we found like a support group. Another church actually had a bunch of parents. Somebody invited me that I knew several years ago, that they met once a month, once every 2 months, and just kind of voice what they were experiencing, and just being there and listening. So, because I think it's really key. It's one thing sharing something with someone and they say sorry, or it's great that you're doing something, but it's another thing where that person is going through the exact same thing, and you can kind of bounce ideas off of each other or share frustrations, and you really know that you're coming from where that person is experiencing the same thing. Or sometimes you feel like you're helpless or lost, and you've experienced something like me going through, a miscarriage, and then obviously 6 from a male perspective. So I would say, if you don't see any resources or anyone advocating or sharing or helping in a certain space or about a certain issue, be that kind of beacon of hope. I understand things like, what I've spoken about today aren't easy to share, and sometimes you're not comfortable sharing. But if you get to a point where you're comfortable and you kind of think that by sharing this, that I can bring more hope, more change, and kind of more healing than just keeping it to myself, I started sharing and really being the person that I wanted, that I was looking for from a potential resource, or for a potential person that, told me that, I'm not the only one dealing with something as well.
And I think that's amazing and actually quite counterintuitive. It seems, Roman, that the more loss you experienced, you and your wife, the more loss you experienced, the more you guys gave back. Have you found that was one of the main things, that the more you lost, the more you give back?
Yeah, I mean, I think I have, my wife and I have a giving spirit, or just like an open heart. Actually, the first placement we had with us, we had them for a year and they ended up being reunified. We thought we were going to adopt them. Caseworker kind of messed up the relationship with the mom. It took us a year to build it back up again, but she ended up picking up out of nowhere, saying nothing, moving to Chicago with really nothing and not saying bye. And then a few weeks ago, reaching out to my wife, said she's in a bad situation. A person threw all her stuff out and she doesn't feel safe. Ended up in a homeless shelter with her 2 kids, not eating, stuff like that. So my wife, basically, we bought a plane ticket. My wife flew out to Chicago and drove her back to New Jersey, and then bought her a month of groceries and clothes for the kids until assistance kicked in. So I think it's just, I cannot be, closed, like cold-hearted, or just like shut off by a situation. A lot of the time we're a certain way, or we're giving, or we're impactful, and then something happens, either professionally or personally, a bad business relationship, so you're losing somebody, and that closes your heart to, being who you were, or who you should be. And regardless of kind of the experience, I still try to be, I would say, who I'm destined to be, in terms of a giving person, a loving person, and showing everybody kind of love and respect, and try to give back as much as I can with, whatever I have to give.
I think that's one of the most ironic but interesting equations in life, is that serving equals succeeding. And I wish more of us could get our head wrapped around that serving equals success. When we really have that Wall Street mentality that success is taking, it's really quite the opposite. And I think you're your life proves that. And guys, we've covered all kinds of things today. We've talked about dealing with deepest loss, magic of giving back even when life keeps taking from you, how not getting your way maybe just what the doctor ordered, and how resilience is a gift that you can give yourself and then share that out with other people through service. Roman, what would you say is your favorite resilience, keep moving forward hack? If there's one thing you'd like to leave with our listeners today, your favorite keep moving forward resilience hack.
T-ballers, time to quit your lollygagging. Get out of the dugout, onto the field, and live the art life.
Waking up and writing down. I've had people tell me this, and I've started doing it. Waking up, writing down a few things that you're grateful for. Just starting your day with gratitude puts you in the right mindset to succeed. So writing down a few things, and then the next day not repeating those things. So you may just make it 2-3 things, but then you truly kind of start seeing the big and small things in your life that you are grateful for. And if you end up writing a person, that you need to reach out to that person that day and tell them why you're grateful. You know, you're appreciative of the last time you had lunch, and you want to get back together and have lunch again and catch up. So I think it really adds like an element of closeness to your life and relationships, and puts you in the right path to succeed as well.
That's amazing. Guys, if you're stuck in the gutter of negativity, that one thing Roman just said can change your life. And if you want more from Roman, you can go to digitalsavageexperience.com. That is where you can locate his Digital Savage Experience podcast. And I don't know, is there anything there free for our listeners? Maybe some free resilience advice on how to raise a few dozen children?
I mean, there's a lot of interviews out there from all walks of life. A lot of people came out of a lot of rough things and managed to come out on top. And there's a lot of blog posts and stuff about mindset, motivation, inspiration, things of that nature as well.
Wow, fantastic. And we're going to ask Roman one of our end episode off-cuff questions.
We journey now with Doc Heath as he submerges with our special guest into the depths beneath the dark recesses of the therapy couch.
And pull out a question we've curated just for him. And okay. All right. Here we are way over here. And Roman, you can take your time and think about this. We try to ask something just a little bit shocking, just for fun, even though it's often sometimes, man, in your case, even kind of tragic. Let's just imagine that you have 7 minutes to sit down and have a conversation with Vladimir Putin, drawing on the better angels of your nature. What's the most helpful world-class coaching advice that you might provide for him?
My first thought would be it would not be a conversation. And I think it would not be a conversation. I would just probably, having a little like sparring, put him in a guillotine, which is a chokehold. And
okay. It's chokehold.
Replace him in that manner, and hopefully he's replaced by somebody better. I mean, there's a lot of backgrounds in terms of Russia and Ukraine and different genocides throughout history. So it'd be 7 minutes wouldn't be enough to change a mindset. And I personally think no matter what I said or would have said in those 7 minutes, it wouldn't change the path or trajectory of that mindset that he already has to kind of rebuild, imperialist mindset to rebuild kind of the Soviet Union, or even prior to that, the Russian Empire. Other than that, I mean, it just experience kind of like, if you truly want to be great or leave a legacy, this isn't really the way to do it. And although you've, caused all this death and destruction and, examples and sites of actual genocide by the military through areas that were liberated by the Ukrainian military, you can still kind of pull out of the country and save face in that. Like it's not going to excuse the situation, but at least it stops, additional bloodshed. So I guess that's what I would probably say.
I love that, because I think that the most world-changing thing a leader can do, especially a world leader, is to show a change of mind, a change of heart, and let people see it. Show a real change of mind, a real change of heart, and let people see it, put some shoe leather on it. I can't remember if it was Seneca or Marcus Aurelius, but I think it might have been Marcus that talked about the one thing that unites all leaders is that they are soon dead and all lost in the dust of history. And it really is about what kind of legacy you'll leave behind. And just imagine the legacy, how Putin will be remembered, at least by most of the world, maybe not by some of his cronies that are afraid to speak up against him, but by, I think, most of the world, as this evil human being. And he could really, and I'm snapping my fingers, he could really change that today. If he were to stand up and say, you know what, come what may, I made a mistake. I'm going to make reparations. I'm going to help this country. We're going to pull out. He would be remembered as a bastion example for other leaders for millennia. That would be such an amazing thing to do. But another thought comes to mind, and my dad would talk about putting lipstick on a pig. Never try putting lipstick on a pig. It just frustrates you and annoys the pig. My point there, my dad's point, was that if what you're going to say to somebody is going to fall on deaf ears, you might as well save your breath. The good book talks about it as far as cast not your pearls before the swine, let's say trample them under and rend you. So yeah, give people a chance, share your wisdom with them. If you know that for some reason that's not going to be valued, then find someone else to share it with. But hey, it's always worth a try. Roman, thank you so much for being with us. It's been incredible to have you on. You have our gratitude for all the wonderful ways in changing all the generations of human beings that you're changing by caring for these children. And there are thousands of people who will exist that will have experienced the benefit of you touching the lives of these children and their grandchildren, their great-grandchildren to the 5th, 6th, and 7th generation. So, man, our hats are off to you, hearts go out to you. Keep up the great work, and God bless you. Thank you for being on the show.
Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Bye-bye, guys. We'll catch you on the next episode. Thanks for joining us.
Welcome to On the Couch and Off Our Rocker with Dr. Ima Freudnot, where we review our special guest Therapy Bites Art Lab episode, Psychomalarkey Scale Assessment Results. That's PMS for short.
Roman Prokopchuk's PMS performance places him in the 97th percentile in the PMS's Triple R Roman Road to Resilience scale. This indicates a transcendent tendency toward an absurdly high degree of stick-to-itiveness in Roman's Ukrainian cortical crevices, and a petrifyingly tumultuous tendency toward tenacious tenacity. Overall, Roman Prokopchuk's PMS psychosymmetric assessment results present a picture of an individual with a dangerously dedicated, determined approach to life, and an apt to persevere, but who tames the torrential, tumultuous, dogged, deterministic impulses by channeling his innate grit into personal growth and hope-induced helping of others in need. This inspiringly encouraging soul likely has a paradoxically astonishingly positive prognosis of thriving in the near future until the decidedly demonstrative dialectical features of his psyche have been psychomologically analyzed and exercised. It is my considered conclusion that Roman Prokopchuk be prescribed no less than a 52 milligram dose of IS intracellular grit tonic oil and a 2300 milligram SN subneuronal dose of resilience oxycin to curtail countervailing cognitions. Dr. Ima Freudnot, Chief Shrinkstigator, Therapy Bites Art Lab.
Grab some of this episode's guest merchandise, specially designed to help keep this episode's message top of mind in your life. Don't forget friends and family members who could use an Art Lab mental boost too. Just go to therapybites.myshopify.com.
Hey, T-Ballers, thanks so much for being with us today. If we brought value to your day, show us some love by leaving your positive feedback and inviting some friends to listen in and join the T-Ball team. Next time on Therapy Bites Art Lab.
Hey, T-Ballers, here's the problem we can help you solve today. Lean in and listen up, because our board-certified wellness practitioner from across the pond is here to alert you that there's a substance in your home that's endangering the health of your family, and it's as addictive as cocaine. Our guest today, Lynn, says that life is not over just because you've reached midlife. Lynn believes it can be fun, joyful, and even fulfilling. Coming up next on Therapy Bites Art Lab.
Government legal gobbledygook. Therapy Bites is not intended as a diagnostic or as an alternative to professional clinical treatment. Resources and advice are for information and entertainment purposes only. Brought to you by someone saying things you don't like? Tape that nagging loudmouth shut. Government-approved speech tape. Gas tape. Now available at your local hardware store. Therapy Bites Art Lab is not an approved, endorsed, authorized, butt-kissing affiliate of the United States Special Offense Assessment Police. SOAP for short. Warning. Consumption of Therapy Bites Art Lab content by Kool-Aid drinking, stinking, thinking, social media, pseudo-psychological pushing, wacky woke, anti-free speech, mumbo-jumbo advocates may cause spontaneous internal skull combustion, stomach discomfort, and or laxative effects. Allergy warning. Therapy Bites is manufactured in a facility that challenges nutty distortions, processes nuggets of accurate, realistic thinking, and life-affirming beliefs. This is the audio version of the legal fine print. Why are you still listening to this when you can catch the next great episode of Therapy Bites Art Lab with a good friend or family member? Really? Are you still there? This is getting silly. Move on to the next psychologically thrilling episode of the best advice on the net. No copay required.
Me eat copay.
Yeah, with Dr. Heath and the T-Ball team. Go ahead, don't be podgoraphobic. Scoot, scoot, scoot. On to the next episode.